Goedemiddag. Welkom bij deze vergadering van de Commissie voor Buitenlandse Zaken. We gaan deze vergadering, die is bij deze geopend, die gaan we in het Engels doen. Dus daar gaan we nu naar over. A warm welcome to our guest, Ms. Tikhanovskaya. Warm welcome to the Netherlands. Actually, I need to say welcome back, I think, because it's your third visit already to the Parliament. And also a warm welcome to the ambassador of Lithuania, who was kind enough to join us here today. My name is Jesse Klaver. I'm the chair of this committee, but I'm not alone today. We have a lot of colleagues here, so let me introduce them to you. First of all, I think you know this one. This is Pieter Omtzigt from New Social Contract. Isa Karaman, he's his colleague from the same party. Ms. Katipiri from the Social Democrats and Green Party. Mr. Van Baarle from DENK. Ms. Dobbe from the Socialist Party. Mr. Dassen from Volt. And Mr. Van den Burg from the VVD. We welcome the opportunity to exchange views with you. So I would like to give you the floor to give some remarks and to tell us about the situation in Belarus.
Thank you, Chairman Klaver, the members of the committee, the friends, the ambassador. First of all, I want to start my speech with the words of gratitude to each of you and to the great people of the Netherlands for your kindness, for your unwavering solidarity, and for many years of support. You know, since the 90s, the Netherlands have supported Belarusian civil society, independent journalists, human rights defenders. Programs such as MATRA or human rights funds have been lifelines for those who have been working tirelessly for freedom and dignity of our country. And I believe that Belarusians will never forget the Dutch principled stance after 2020, when our peaceful democratic revolution has started after stolen elections. I remember you were clear and firm at that moment that Lukashenko is a criminal who seized power, and we support Belarusian people who fight for freedom. And I remember my many meetings with the Prime Minister Mark Rutte and many of you during my first visit to Hague back in 2020. And it was just the beginning of my accidental political path, and you inspired me to continue the fight. And the 4 Freedom Awards that I received on behalf of the Belarusian people holds a special place in my heart. This award now stands in in the hall of our office. It's a symbol of hope and resilience. And one day I believe this award will come to Minsk, you know, and to Museum of Free Belarus. You know, I also remember standing here with you when, I suppose the day after the shocking hijacking of Ryanair flight, when journalist Roman Protasevich was kidnapped. And you gave me your word that Lukashenko would not go unpunished for this crime, that his place in Hague, here in The Hague, as an international terrorist. Also, of course, we all remember and see actually the unwavering support to Ukraine. When the war began, the Netherlands was among the first to act, to help and to lead. We will stand with Ukraine until victory, you said, and actually you have. And today the Netherlands is one of the Ukraine's biggest supporters. Supporting Ukraine also means supporting Belarus. Our fates are intertwined. There will be no free Belarus without free Ukraine, but also vice versa. Without a free and democratic Belarus, there can be neither a safe Ukraine nor secure Europe. As we speak, hundreds of Belarusian volunteers are fighting on the front lines of Ukraine, fighting shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian brave soldiers. And more than 60 people have already been killed by Russian troops. Other Belarusians have conducted acts of sabotage to slow Russians' advance. We understand that Ukraine is fighting not only for its own survival, it's the fighting for values we hold so dear. And both Ukrainians and Belarusians are fighting for European future. And for us, Belarusians, Europe is the family where we truly belong. We proved it in 2020 when we voted for democracy and tried to defend our choice by peaceful means. Our peaceful revolution is unfinished and resistance is not asleep. The protest went underground because of terror, but people are not giving up and we are preparing for a new window of opportunity for our country. While the dictator continues to the terror, arresting about 12 people every day in Belarus, we continue to resist. And Belarusians build communities, spread honest news and support families of repressed. As democratic forces, we have created alternative institutions of power, such as United Transitional Cabinet as Coordination Council. These are true representatives of Belarusian people. We are united, we are coordinated, and we deliver. We show to the Belarusian people that there is a democratic alternative to tyranny and alternative to Russian world. While Putin and Lukashenko are trying to isolate our people from Europe, we are building people-to-people ties. We advocate for visas, for scholarships and exchanges. We need more Europe in Belarus and more Belarus in Europe. Also, we are building coalitions because we understand that no fight for freedom can be won when you're alone. It needs allies. And when a new moment comes, the world must be prepared, the same as we are. And of course, we don't know how and precisely when the changes will come. But such dictatorship as in Minsk seem invincible until they suddenly collapse. And no one could predict, for example, the fall of Berlin Wall, collapse of Ceausescu in Romania, for example, or recently Assad in Syria, but it happened. And the same can happen with Lukashenko in Minsk. And I do believe that democratic changes in Belarus can come earlier than the changes in Russia. And our changes can spark changes there as well. In contrast to Russia, Belarusian society is united, anti-war, and European in its essence. Therefore, I ask you not to put Belarus and Russia into one basket. It's Lukashenko who became Putin's accomplice and war criminal, while Belarusian people are supporting Ukraine. Of course, I ask you continue to distinguish Belarusian regime from Belarusian people. On the one hand, we have to punish the dictator by sanctions and isolation, on the other to support European aspirations of Belarusians. Let me make it clear again, Lukashenko is an illegitimate dictator who doesn't represent Belarusian people. He serves Putin and Russian interests. And so-called elections on January 26 are nothing more than farce aimed to legitimize Lukashenko's terror and crimes against the Belarusian and Ukrainian people. And this legitimization must not happen. The very word election is confusing. We use democratic language to describe something that doesn't have anything in common with democracy. How can you call something elections when no alternative candidates, no observers, no free media, no vote count are allowed? Former presidential hopefuls like Nikolai Statkevich or Pavel Severinets, Viktor Babarika or Sergei Tikhanovsky remain in prison and held incommunicado for more than 1 year. And it's already clear that there is no conditions for elections in Belarus. And we don't need to wait to denounce this charade. I urge you to reject this farce, as many governments and parliaments have already done. As the sham elections get closer, repressions only grows. Every single day, on average, 10, 12 people are being detained. As we speak, there are 1,265 officially recognized political prisoners in Belarus. Among them is my husband, Sergei, and it will be soon 2 years since I have last heard from him. I want to hope that at least that he's alive. And the regime keeps political prisoners as hostages, isolating them from the world and terrorizing their families. But the regime is terrorizing not only those who are in the country, but also those Belarusians who are in exile. Lawyers call it transnational repressions. Hundreds of thousands of Belarusians abroad became de facto stateless. They are deprived of their documents, passports, and they are prosecuted through Interpol. Their families in Belarus targeted by the KGB. Some activists who joined the Solidarity rally here in The Hague a few months ago told me that the KGB came after their parents in Minsk and now they face years in prisons. All that is the criminal nature of the regime. It's threat not only to Belarusian people, not only to Ukraine, but to entire Europe, to its international law and order. We have to always remember that dictators cannot be appeased, dictators cannot be re-educated, they can only be fought. Because if tyranny is not stopped, it only grows like cancer. Dear friends, I came today to you with some concrete proposals about what Netherlands and Dutch Parliament can do and what we can do together. So first, I ask you to reject Lukashenko's regime, his special electoral operation, and reject his legitimacy. Adopt the motion or resolution. We must call things by their real names. Lukashenko is a criminal who seized power and must not be recognized. Second, let's strengthen pressure on Lukashenko and his cronies by sanctions and isolation. Call for the release of all political prisoners, stopping of the repressions, and withdrawing Belarus out of the war. Third, support the referral of Lithuania to the International Criminal Court here in The Hague. If you manage to get an arrest warrant on Lukashenko, that would be a great hit on him, his regime, and Putin's Russia too. Fourth, increase assistance to democratic forces and civil society. You can ask the ministry to support the European Endowment for Democracy, MATRA, and Human Rights Fund. See assistance to Belarus as investment in peace and security of the entire region, and as you support Ukraine too. Fifth, let's strengthen interparliamentary cooperation. Join the informal group for democratic Belarus in the Dutch Parliament. Such groups already exist in 24 countries, including Belgium and Luxembourg, and also the European Parliament. Be our voice in PASE, OSCE PA, NATO PA, and other assemblies. Organize hearings on Belarus. Pay a study visit to Warsaw or Vilnius to meet former political prisoners and the families of repressed. As parliamentarians, you can take patronage over political prisoners, become a godparent for someone behind bars, tell his or her story to the world. And it doesn't take much of your time usually, but it makes a real difference for people. Also, we ask you to invite Belarusians for internships in the parliament. Our people will learn how democracy works from inside, and the Dutch side will get a better understanding of Belarus. And here we have an organization, MARA, United Belarusians in the Netherlands. Many of them face problems with legalization now because of expired documents and the regime's prosecution. And I encourage you to meet these people as well. Dear friends, in the end, I want to thank each of you, Dutch Parliament and government. During these 2 days of my visit, I feel tremendous support. And I'm glad that the topic of Belarus unites. It unites all groups and parties. And I want to thank Isa Karaman from NSC and Dutch Foreign Ministry, and of course Embassy of Lithuania, for helping to organize the visit. I'm glad that Belarus remains on agenda, and let's keep it high. Let's see Belarus not just a part of the problem, but also as part of the solution. I do believe that Belarus can be and will be a success story. And this would be a success of Dutch foreign policy as well. And although I'm not a professional politician, I learned one thing, that no success can be achieved without patience and consistency. This is what I want to wish us all. And, Belarusian democratic forces are prepared to lead this fight, and, with your victory, let's bring this moment closer. I'll finish here. Thank you. I'm open for discussion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much. We'll open the discussion shortly, but before we do so, I would like to give the floor to the Ambassador of Lithuania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear parliamentarians, Ms. Tsikhanouskaya, I want to express my gratitude both to the government and the Parliament of the Netherlands for organizing this visit of Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya here and providing the opportunity for a voice of Belarusian democratic forces to express what you just heard about the situation in Belarus and around the Belarus. As Lithuania, a neighboring country to Belarus, we express our unwavering support to democratic forces of Belarus. And as neighboring country, we can witness what is happening in the country and next to that country. And that brings me to the point I wanted to make that was already mentioned by Ms. Tsikhanouskaya, that we are now facing ongoing crimes against humanity that are committed in Belarus and abroad from Belarus. And I'm talking about mostly about the deportees, the people that were democratic opposition in Belarus, now actually forced to leave the country, and they're persecuted both in the country and abroad. And based on that fact, Lithuanian government submitted a referral at the International Criminal Court at the end of September. And with this, we try to persuade other partners to join this referral, so that there are many more countries involved in the process, and the international justice could be in place. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I wish you very good discussions here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Then I would like to give the floor to my colleagues, and maybe we can start with colleague Karaman. Yeah. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But let me start with thanking Madam Tsikhanouskaya for accepting our invitation to visit The Hague and the Dutch Parliament, because it's vital that we in the Netherlands learn about your courageous fight for human rights, free elections, and the strengthening of democracy and the rule of law in Belarus. As New Social Contract, we share your concern about the grave situation in your homeland. We fully support your efforts for the democratic future of Belarus. We hope that your meeting today can contribute to the building of a better future for your country. I have one question. I would like to ask, what would you like from us from Parliament? You stated it really clearly in your 5 points, so I will work with that with my colleagues to see what we can do for you to help your country. But another question of mine is, we met yesterday also some members of diaspora of people from Belarus living here in the Netherlands. What can people from Belarus living in the Netherlands do for you to help you in your fight for democracy in Belarus?
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Issa, for your question. The only thing I may add to what the Dutch Parliament can do, also for Belarusian fight is, I don't know if you have practice of organizing exhibitions in the building of Parliament. We can together organize exhibition of repressed or political prisoners, or we have exhibition of our killed military volunteers in Ukraine. So just to underline the role of Belarusian fight for Ukrainians and for ourselves, so we can also put it into consideration. As for Belarusian people in the Netherlands, I have to admit that the role of Belarusian diaspora all over the world increased a lot since 2020. Belarusians showed that then they can self-organize and they can represent, Belarusian voice in different countries. And the Dutch diaspora, Belarusian diaspora in the Netherlands, is one of the best organized and most active. What they are doing, they are communicating to parliamentarians to raise the issue of Belarus. They are organizing different rallies on special dates for Belarus, on Freedom Day or 9th of August, that we are not celebrating, but just use this opportunity to highlight Belarus. There are many initiatives of solidarity, of just people here collect evidence of Lukashenko's crimes just to send it to accountability platform, and also support the repressed. It's such a huge problem, for us to support all those people who are staying behind the bars, but also those who already served their terms. It's at least 2,000 people who need psychological and physical rehabilitation after the prison, and people donating money, to organize this rehabilitation. Also, we have many veterans of the war in Ukraine. They also need some assistance. But the main topic for diasporas is to help our military volunteers in Ukraine. The Dutch diaspora, they organized many medical vehicles that were sent to Ukraine to be in service of Ukrainian army. They continue to gather assistance, like non-lethal aid, like equipment, food, clothes, so on and so forth, just because there's always lack of this stuff in Ukraine. So tonight I'm meeting with the Belarusian diaspora here. And they're so grateful to the Netherlands for giving them safe haven. Not many of them moved to Netherlands after 2020. They are mostly, live here for a long time, but they face the same problem with documents, with the legalization. And I really want to know peculiarities of these issues tonight. And I want them to give me detailed information how this can be solved. I want them to investigate the Dutch laws, what possibilities you have to help Belarusians without changing any laws. I am sure that there are possibilities. So, but yeah, they are a big part of our resistance, of our movement, and we are grateful for them.
Thank you. Ms. B.
It's great to see you again, and welcome to The Hague. Also welcome, of course, to the ambassador. We just had a moment before this meeting to have a short bilateral. So let me ask another question, which I did not have yet the opportunity to do. One of the things that you say, it's important to have separate sanctions against Belarus. As far as I know, when you were running for elections, there were still old sanctions in place. I think for the murder of some political prisoners, some 14, 15 people were on that sanction list. Then, of course, after what happened, there were some individuals added to the sanctions. And if I understand it correctly, all the sanctions from that moment on were for Belarusian corporations with the Russians when it comes to the war in Ukraine. So could you perhaps elaborate a little bit on what kind of specific sanctions for the human rights situation in Belarus you think the European Union should do, where the Dutch Parliament or Dutch government could, of course, be of assistance?
Tsiganovskaya.
First of all, we welcome economic sectoral sanctions against the regime. We really have possibility to advise which will be the most painful sectors, for Lukashenko's regime that will not harm people. It's essential for us. It's the sectors where from which regime of Lukashenko gain huge money in the personal pockets. It's not for the country. But as for human rights abuses, we really want to have a package of personal sanctions against judges, prosecutors, all those propagandists and perpetrators who participated in the crimes against Belarusian people. Plenty of them. And just to show this sign that they will not stay unpunished. Not many of them have possibility, to travel because regime restrict them as well, but it's moral pressure on them, that we see you, we follow you, and that we see your crimes. So I think that we have delivered already this list of these people to all the parliaments and government, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so, and just it would be nice if it will be the next package of sanctions on European level. But also we welcome any national, individual sanctions, from the Netherlands as well. Because when there is no new economic or personal restrictions on Belarusian regime, they feel that, that there is some hesitation or not movement, in the direction of punishment, and they feel impunity, for these actions. We have to be consistent in this restrictive policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Baarle.
Well, thank you, Ms. Tsikhanouskaya, for your introduction and also for your contribution for democratic Belarus. We admire that. You rightfully called the upcoming elections in Belarus sham elections. They cannot be called elections if you adhere to democracy. Could you maybe please give us an insight in the actual repression that the Belarusian dictator right now is committing in relation to the upcoming sham elections? Because I can expect that the amount of repression that the regime now is committing in relation to the elections is getting worse. Could you please give an actual insight to us, please?
Please.
This preparation for so-called elections remind more military operation rather than pre-election, campaign, because they intensified repressions. I mean that they are coming to apartments of activists, of human rights defenders, of ex-political prisoners, their families. They just warning them, if you dare do something, just you will be imprisoned again. They are very publicly, they promote the military drills on the streets of different cities of Belarus, pretending that they are suppressing any uprising, just to show that they're ready, for any demonstrations. Lukashenko acts as if still hundreds of thousands are standing in front of his palace. They know that nobody forgot what has happened, nobody is giving up, and they're afraid of the people. In the day of so-called elections, of course, it will be, massive, it will be, the regime will force people to come to the polling stations to show how many people, participated in so-called elections. And in this case, we're asking people, if you are on the polling station, please put this tick against all. Not vote for anybody. We understand that nobody is going to count these ballots. They will be burned immediately after the closing of polling stations. But it's like moral need of people to do something. The only intrigue about these so-called elections is what the number will be in the final ballot. How much Lukashenko will draw, be more than Putin got, or even more than 100%. That is also possible. But we don't wait, and we are not called people for any kind of demonstrations on this day, because regime is preparing, of course, and I don't want people to sacrifice their freedom and lives in vain, because it's not the turning point, of politics, in Belarus, and we have to be prepared and save our people for really proper moment of changes. So you want to add, yeah. So this is yeah, and there are a couple of people who participate in so-called elections, and this is fan club of Lukashenko. They are competing who in love with the Führer most. This is how it looks like, at the moment. Please, Frank.
Three restrictions that were introduced recently. First, they allowed police to shoot with real bullets in order to stop protesters. So before, they were not allowed to use the lethal weapon. Second, They introduced the new law last year about using death penalty for state treason of official workers. So basically anyone who works in the electoral commission or in the state ministry or wherever which belongs to the state, and if the regime believes they are working with democratic forces, with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, they potentially can be facing a death penalty. And Belarus is still using death penalty. As you know, it's the only country which is practicing it. And the third, from the January 1st of this year, already the very new law, they allow to take kids from extremist and not loyal families to orphanages. So basically, if you have been under arrest, even for short term, not necessarily criminal prosecution, the social services allowed to take your kids to orphanages. That's also a form of pressure. So people are afraid to go to the streets. It's very similar to Stalin orders and Stalin times laws. And the regime is getting more and more close to 30s of the Soviet Union. And of course, repressive machine in Belarus is much more rigorous than in Russia. Russia, compared to Belarus, is much more liberal. Of course, it's not democratic at all. But just imagine what's happening in Belarus, and we even say that Belarus is sort of a laboratory of repression for Putin. Because very often restrictions introduced in Belarus, after some time and some years, come to Russia too, including these transnational repressions, which are practiced right now by the regime of Lukashenko, and probably very soon will be used by Russian regime and other authoritarian regimes in the world.
I would like to add something here.
One more thing I forgot to mention is that on the 26th of January, we encourage diasporas and, democratic forces, to have rallies, to have highlight Belarus, importance of Belarus, these fraudulent elections, and we are going to have big event in Warsaw where most of Belarusian people live. And recently, just a couple of days ago, regime made a post in the propagandistic channels that they are going to shoot, to shoot, to video, to film people on these rallies, on these events, and we inform you that your relatives who are in Belarus, they will be detained for your participation in these rallies. Your property will be confiscated for participation in the rallies. So they're threatening people who live in free countries as well.
Ms. Dobbe.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much for coming here and meeting with us. It's very impressive to hear both your story, but also, for example, that you have not heard from your husband for 2 years. It's also very difficult for you as a person. I wanted to ask something because the repression is enormous, obviously, and it's a brutal dictatorship that is worse than Russia, as you describe it now. But I also hear you say that democratic changes can come earlier than in Russia, and that's a real message of hope. So what makes you give us that message of hope in the face of such repression, and what is needed for that democratic change to occur?
I remember how in 2020 our uprising sparked uprising in Russia. They emboldened, Russian opposition and people, to go to the street as well. What makes me, give me hope that, changes in Belarus can come earlier, because I see how Belarusian society is consolidated, how Belarusian society, so firm in their desire and wish to change Belarus for democracy and put it on pro-European, path of development. We have different contexts with the Russians, because in Russia society is more dispersed. What was the word? More divided, there are so many groups there, and there is still big support to Putin in Russia. You will not find this in the Belarusian society. So when the moment, the trigger will appear, I truly believe that majority of Belarusians, will demonstrate, simultaneously, will be very active at this proper moment. They will vote, for a European future and all this stuff. We have absolutely pro-Ukrainian moods in our society. Belarusian people are not so subjugated to propaganda. As in Russia, for example, we really use our media instruments very effectively, and that's why we're asking to assist our media, because every €1 million to Belarusian free media make regime and Putin's propagandists to spend 10 times more for countering Belarusian alternative media. This is very important. So I really feel hear so many feedback from Belarusians inside the country that we are prepared, we are ready. Just give us a signal. I remember, as it was, maybe you forgot already, this Prigozhin's march on Moscow. It was the moment when immediately tons of messages from Belarusian people, we are prepared. Just, if they will succeed, there will be some turbulence, we will do what we can on the ground. So those people who fled the country, staying united. We are voice of those who are in Belarus, voice of voiceless in Belarus, and the people are very active in exile, and people are ready to just return to Belarus immediately and to conduct free and fair elections. So this is why we just need proper moment, and we need to strengthen agents of democratic forces, strengthen our civil society, our national identity. Just at the moment, when the moment comes, we will be stronger than another alternative. Because, in the moment of this turbulence, there will be only two alternative, to the changes. It will be like somebody pro-Russian who can come instead of Lukashenko, and can be democratic forces, and we have to come with better proposition, in stronger position than somebody pro-regime or pro-Russian.
Thank you. Mr. Dassen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I would like to continue on what you just mentioned, because indeed you also said there's a new window of opportunity and that you are already also building new institutions. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on this, and also if within this building of the new institutions you require support or any way that we can help with that, to ensure that once the transition takes place, once the moment arrives, that you also have the opportunity to establish these new institutions, because I can believe that's very important at that moment.
So we have already a very clear structure of our democratic forces. We have like president-elect. We have a united transitional cabinet as proto-government, where my representatives are working on specific issues, on transition period, on social issues, on military aspects, national identity, so on and so forth. So people, when they have problems or proposals, they know who is responsible for what direction. And we have coordination council. It's like a platform. It might be called proto-parliament, but of course it's like in initial point. It's like platform for discussion where people debate and where people come with proposals. They just come in with proposition of future laws, for New Belarus, with proposals how we can strengthen European perspectives, for Belarus. So this is the structure. Simultaneously, we are working very closely with civil society. We are not just separate. We are one movement. We are working with human rights defenders and media. We just not competing at the moment at all. We are just working together. So so what we need to strengthen the agency is to make all the structures visible, to de facto recognize these structures, because, for example, our representatives in Coordination Council, they're already working with the parliaments of different countries. They increase this cooperation. My representatives, they are meeting with the relevant ministers in the government of different countries just to intensify this collaboration. What also we have done and achieved, we formalized relationship with the many institutions and countries. For example, we launched strategic dialogue with the USA, the first time in the history when they did something like this with government in exile. Or we launched strategic dialogue with Canada. In March, it will be with UK. We have signed agreement of cooperation with the European Parliament. We are embedded into European Union structures. We are working with Council of Europe and so on and so forth. You know, we managed to come to the moment when we are, as democratic forces, considered to be counterparts, to governments, yes, and parliaments. And it's de facto recognition. We are not just looking for all recognizing us on paper, but this cooperation, collaboration is the clear signs that we don't work with Lukashenko's regime. They don't represent, Belarusians, but we are working with you. And it gives the feeling of strength to people. We don't feel abandoned. We feel that when the moment comes, we are talking about we will not be alone, as we were back in 2020, that European society and leadership will be prepared for these changes as well, and just help us to be more visible, help us, invite our representatives of civil society, of political structures to all the possible events that you organize where Belarusian voice can be heard. It's like Eastern Partnership programs, different assemblies, parliamentary assemblies of different organizations. This will be, it will give us more visibility and more relevancy. And for Belarusian people, why it's important that we are part of all these institutions, because again, it shows the strength of democratic forces. They see that Lukashenko brings nothing new to Belarus. He brought only war. He brought deeper dependence from Russia because of his policy, and they want to see Belarus as part of Europe. They want new investments. They want developing of our economy, and that's why they're choosing a democratic future for Belarus. And one of our tasks, why this strength is important. Belarusian nomenclatura authorities, they also watch closely where the wind blows, and we are publicly we are communicating to these authorities, explaining that we are one nation. We have to work together in the future, and this split elites. Believe me, since 2020, our, if I can call so, cooperation with our informants in regime is only increasing. We get so much inside information, how, for example, sanctions are circumvented, how regime is militarizing our economy, how they're earning money on this war, how they're selling, what they're selling to Russia, how the processes of repressions are going on, how ideologies are working, for example, what Lukashenko has on his table every morning, just to, we can imagine what's important for him, what's not important, So, this strength of our movement is important, for these reasons. And yeah.
If I may.
You want to add something? Yeah, please.
If I may. So after last meeting here in the Commission in 2023, some of the parliamentarians, we don't know who, requested, to support democratic forces. And it was one of the first example, and we received, it was very small, very limited, but support which helped us to build this international advocacy campaign, and also it strengthened structures, because it was just after cabinet was created. And it was Netherlands with the European Endowment for Democracy who supported that. So we would much appreciate if, such way, will continue, and if parliamentarians will help us to strengthen our capacity, because when moment comes, as Madam President has mentioned, we have to be strong. And these institutions we are building, they will play a very important role in this post-war situation, post-war reality, which might come very soon. And then the fate of Belarus will be decided.
Thank you. Mr. Paternotte.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again. And thank you for your leadership and your perseverance in continuing to lead the opposition against Lukashenko. My question is about the war in Ukraine. Yesterday you explained me how more Belarusians are actually supporting Ukraine also by working inside Ukraine, but also because of the acts of resistance within Belarus around the time when Putin was using Belarus as a staging ground for the invasion. And my question is if you can elaborate a little bit on how Belarusians are currently trying to prevent any contributions to the Russian war effort in Ukraine.
Of course, we understand that visible and public anti-war position is very dangerous in Belarus because singing Ukrainian songs forbidden. Helping to donating to Ukrainian army is forbidden. You can just for 20 euros of donut you can get 5-10 years in jail. And relatives of military volunteers who are fighting in Ukraine, relatives in Belarus, they are also always interrogated by the regime, terrorized. But and most, of course, in Belarus, it's difficult to do something like essential regarding the war in Ukraine. But I think that what Belarusian people on the ground do now, they are following. We have many Shaheds now flying above our country, and they sending us images, videos, of what's happening. Or our informants from railway system, they send us which goods, are arriving to Belarus, what are being departed, how railway is participating in assisting Russian war. And I think that if Putin will try to use Belarusian infrastructure again, using Belarusian railway, there will be acts of sabotage again because our partisans, are still in Belarus. But more visible political advocacy or assistance, it goes from Belarusians abroad. We can very easily donate to Ukrainian army. We are in cooperation with the Ukrainian diaspora all over the world. And on political level, we really advanced so much in cooperation with the Ukrainian government. Minister of Foreign Affairs also appointed special envoy to work with democratic forces of Belarus. Ukrainian parliamentarians holding hearings on Belarus. We have many joint events in Kiev, Lviv, and other cities. So just strengthening, our Belarusian Ukrainian ties. As politicians, we are, of course, advocating for Ukrainians' victory. I always say that we need to give Ukraine everything they need to win this war, and at least, to be in strong position when negotiations will take place. But also we simultaneously explain why Belarusian aspect should be in this negotiation process. And Ukrainians also understand that until Belarus is free, democratic, and without dictatorship, there will be constant threat to them from pro-Russian Lukashenko. That's why Belarusian issue should be embedded into this negotiation. And we are already have some first contacts with the new Trump's administration, and we rediscover Belarus for this new new government in the USA. And if before we talked with President Biden mostly about democracy, about human rights, so now we want President Trump to look on Belarus through perspective of security, democracy through security. We explained that if not help Belarusians to dismantle this regime, there will be no peace and stability in Europe, and we have to defend Europe, because we will see all these provocations on the borders, migrants sent into to the West, deployment of nuclear weapon, huge threat, this constant Russian, Belarusian drills, it will be endless. It will be a constant source of turbulence in the country. So we have to solve both issues, Ukraine and Belarus together. But again, to demand this from a dictator, we need Ukraine and actually democracy to be strong at that moment.
Thank you. Mr. Omtzigt.
Thank you very much, and thanks for being here, Svetlana. And I hope to see you again, but then not as opposition leader here, because it's about time there's a bit of change. You can't claim to be democracy if you've been a president for more than 25 years. You can only do that if you're in Russia, Belarus, or the moment in Azerbaijan. There you can even pass it on to your son. You ask us to set up a committee for contact. We'll happily try to do that, or at least I'll happily try to do that. And some people I've been in app contact here will happily do that. What would you like us to do, or what could we do to support your work?
As I mentioned in my speech, you ask for consistency of the policy. Don't because we for sure we will see attempts of the regime, to fool democratic world again, to fool the Netherlands again. That look, we want to be closer to Europe. We have seen this play many times. So stay consistent. We have to bring perpetrators to account. We have to punish the regime, and again, assistance to people. We ask you to address your minister to increase cut assistance to democratic forces, to media, to civil society. Just explain how it's important, Belarus strategically, and investing into Belarusian democratic forces. You are investing into peace and security of the region, and Ukraine actually as well. So we are not asking to do our job instead of us. Just be with us, in this difficult moment. So nothing to add to what I have said already. You want to add something? So, but yeah.
I think cooperation with Belarusian political parties. They are under very big pressure right now, and of course the leaders are in exile. Activists still on the ground. We have around Cabinet and Coordination Council, there is the group of nine political parties, and they gather together, they work together from very right to very left, and they are part of our international efforts. Just on 15, it's tomorrow?
Tomorrow, actually.
Tomorrow. In European Parliament, they will have the forum 8+100, so 8 Belarusian parties and 100 European parties from different countries. They gather together to elaborate the strategy and cooperation, and we encourage your parties to join, this format as well when the next event will take place. The second in March, tak?
March 6-7.
In March, on March 6-7, we hope that the Dutch representatives, Isa, Katie, others, Peter, everyone who is working on Belarus often might join as well. It will be in Rome. It's an interparliamentary group. You're coming? We hope, many of you will join.
Okay. But Peter, Mr. Omtzigt doesn't have the word, so please continue.
So in the Italian Parliament, we are gathering all the members, the leaders of groups for democratic Belarus, formal and informal groups from different parliaments, from 25 parliaments, to discuss this common strategy, what to do on Belarus. And this is also the format we want to cooperate, and also to support, and perhaps you can take patronage. We have these leaflets, how to become godparent, we can give it afterwards, for party leaders. There is one example, Dmitry Kuchuk, the leader of Belarusian Greens. He was arrested just a few weeks ago to 5 years in prison, just because he registered as the candidate to parliamentary elections 1 year ago in Belarus. He was trying. He tried, to challenge the system, and now he's in prison. But, leaders like him, many of them from different ideologies, and Social Democrats and Greens and several central-right parties, you can take them under your patronage. And also, this will be your support to your sister parties in Belarus. And of course, other points, we mentioned for the group. We can work together in parliamentary assemblies, especially in PACE, where from 27th of January, we will have, for the first time, official Democratic Belarus delegation.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tikhanovskaya and your delegation, thank you for visiting the Parliament for the third time. I hope there will be a fourth one. We're looking forward to that. Good luck with all the good work you're doing. And this meeting has come to an end, so I close the meeting. Thank you.